Hello, my name is Adrian Anderson. I've been working with Oracle CPQ and really enterprise selling applications for the better part of 10 years now. And I currently work at Oracle supporting CPQ and subscription management. Well, this content is separate from my work at Oracle, and it's just a means to get information and ideas out there for free. So this is going to be part two in our series on BOM mapping. Like I said in the last video, BOM mapping was the hardest thing for me to learn in CPQ. So I want to do my best to lower the barrier entry for anyone working with CPQ, or I think any CPQ-like application that uses this philosophy or style or strategy of configuration. So last video, we just talked about the basics of what a bomb is. We talked about the part structure, talked a little bit about what we might sell, and we also checked out what the effect of bomb mapping has on the front end. This second video, we'll start to get more technical, start to dive into the implementation. I don't know if we'll get through everything today or in this video, but we will start taking a shift through the implementing. So if this is what you're looking for, you're in the right place. So just to recap from our last video, so I don't leave anyone behind. We looked at the product structure, talked about what a product structure is, a bomb structure is, and this is going to be the example we're working with. And then I talked a little bit about the use case we're going to use, which is going to be implementing BOM mapping or configuration for a data center, right? So basically data center providers, server power providers, things like that. Okay. So the first step that we want to take when we start to implement BOM mapping is we need to get really the product structure down on paper or digital paper, something like this. We need to form a product structure like this so it can be consumed by everyone. Anyone can look at this and see that how these parts are organized, right? This serves two purposes. Obviously, it helps us figure out the structure itself, but also the parts themselves. And everything in the BOM structure is going to be a part. If you're not for bill of materials, not only are the parts that we're selling, aka finished goods or whatever you want to call them, going to be parts in the BOM, but so are the option classes. Okay, so these, if you'll need to create these as parts in CPQ. If you're working with an application like PDH and Fusion or another product lifecycle management, or product management application, your option class will be parts as well. Now, your root item, generically speaking, may or may not be a part, something that's actually going to be sold. Uh, the way it could be, again, it could be a SKU itself. It could just be an idea of something. So deployment is an idea of something. A, to give a contrast, if we were selling a car, the car itself, its chassis, its subframe, its all that has a is something that you could sell. It's a physical thing in space. A deployment isn't a physical thing in space. It's just an idea of something. Hopefully that makes some sense. But the distinction, to make it easy, is will you potentially put a price against this top level thing? If not, then you don't need a part for it. If so, then you will need a part for it. But I wouldn't get too wrapped up into those details because sometimes you'll have a root level thing, which is a part, a physical thing in space, but its total price, it won't have a price to it explicitly. It'll just be a roll up of everything. But you could also have a price on this and then also have everything here roll up as well. So going back to the car example, like I said, the chassis, the subframe of the car may have its price, but then everything you add on top of that, the wheels, the interior, the specific paint you want, the configuration of the engine or transmission will also add to that cost. So first thing we need to do is get this structure on paper so we can get the structure itself, but also find the parts. Once we have these parts that we need to create, all of these, we'll need to create them in CPQ. So I have already done that. So we'll copy this, go to parts. Let's just search one. Here it is. Okay. There's nothing fancy you need to do on these, right? You just need to have the part. There's nothing explicit to BOM mapping that has you fill out any other thing. I'll tell you some of the things I have done. Um, obviously gave a description because I am using subscription management and asset-based ordering in my site. I have this sales product type as subscription. This is congruent with the Fusion application that this site is also integrated with. To keep things organized, I have my product family. I've created a custom part attribute where I put data center here so I know the product family this part belongs to. That way, if I export all these parts and I just want to work on a particular set of parts for a product family, I can just filter on this. I have this user item type, which is this is also a field that you will see in Fusion PDH or PLM, Product Data Hub or Product Lifecycle Management. Just so, again, I know that this is a finished good. So to give a contrast, if I take space, you see this one is an option class, right? Now, I don't believe I have a part for deployment, but let's just look. I might. Yes, and I do. So I don't need it, but in my case, I do have it, which is fine. All right. So now that we have our structure, now that we have our parts, and also this is what we're selling, something like this or this or this. Now that we have our parts, we need to create our config attributes and config flow. So that also is something I've done. And I should actually back up. Before you can even create config attributes and flows, you need to first do a product definition. Here, a product definition is just data center. Okay. If you don't know how to create that, you can see my one-on-one video of configuration, but I'll just walk through it so we're all on the same page. So if I were to create one, I come over here to add, and I just give it a label, and the label automatically populates the variable name. So we don't need to create that. Once you create it, you'll need to deploy it. So it will show in red, I think here or here, I'm not sure. But you just come to navigation, deployment center, and then you would deploy it. You only need to do that once. Once that deployment is finished, you'd come to catalog definition. You would stay all product families, go to list. And then you need to add support here. So you'd click add, and there'd be a box here for the product family that you created. And you just select it and click add. And then you would see it in this page. So now you have your product family. Okay. And then you'd come down the product lines, you'd create your product line, and then you come to models, then create your model. And you need to create models. Okay. To do BOM mapping, you need to have a configuration model, which is what this is. All right. And you need to take note of the variable name of your product family, your product line, and your product model. This is going to be important when we get to filling in our BOM tables, because this gives a specific path of the model that we're going to be configuring. But we will come back to that later. And as I said, you need to create your configuration attributes and flows. So just to start from the top, we're going to go into catalog definition. You can also use the quick links here. In fact, I will use the quick links. It's good to know how to use this. We'll select our product family, which is going to be data center. Now, you could create all of your attributes at one of four levels. You can create all your attributes at the all products level, at the product family level, at the product line level, or at the model level. There's implications to where you create each of these, where you create attributes for each of these. My recommendation, and I believe best practice, at least in my experience, is to create all your attributes and rules at the product line level. I do that because if it's at the product line level, that means all the child models can use these attributes, right? But then if but then these attributes don't need to be considered at the product family level or all products level. I find that product line level is enough level of granularity that you can still use them across models, which typically should be similar configuration experiences, but not so broad that other unrelated configurators or families need to think about them. So that's what we have done. I'm at the, again, all products level, product family, which is data center, product lines. This is my product line colocation. I have my one model of the deployment, and then I have all my attributes here. Okay, so here are all my attributes. You can pause the screen if you want to take a look at them. But I came up with these attributes by really interviewing my customer. Not this is when we get to how they sell what they sell. Okay. So let's look at this actually from an end user point of view. And I should also mention that not only did I create the attributes, but I also placed them on the UI. So let's actually open that up as well so you can see the configuration flow. I'm going to take the typical path to get there. Again, I'm going to catalog definition, product families list. I'm going to come to my product family, which is data center. I'm going to list. I'm going to look at my models. Here's my one model deployment. And I'm going to go to my configuration flows. You can have your product or your configuration flows at the line level if you want, if you're going to have a similar flow between all your models. But because I only have one model, I'm just going to have it here at the model level. Here's my configuration flow rule. It's always true. It's the primary start and end node. That's important. So I can see obviously do all my configuration, but I can see my the result of my configuration in config. I can see this panel over here. Let's look at the layout. And this is what it looks like. So you can basically drag and drop attributes on the screen to put them where you want. You can create grids and other things, but that's another story. So coming back to here, so here are, most if not all of my attributes. There's only one attribute that you don't see right now, which is the array control attribute for this array. It's just an integer attribute that controls the size or how many rows are in this array. That's not super important right now. But the flow is, and again, from talking to the customer, how are they selling what they sell? Again, we sell data center space. Sometimes data center space may be caged, but that's not always the default. So I'm asking them, is this going to be a caged deployment? We're going to default it to no. If they say yes, we're going to require a cage square footage. And let's just say it's 100 square feet. Maybe we actually want to enforce this as a minimum. So let's do that together. Actually, let's make a recommendation rule for that. We don't want it to be a default. So let's keep this. This is also an important rule. If the cage deployment is false, then we want the cage square footage to be 0. But let's just add another one. Whoops. Oh, this is not where we want to create it. We want to put a condition on this. That's if the Let's add this first so we can take it off our clipboard. And we want to say if cage deployment is true, then set this to 100. We're going to set like that. Let's add him back. And let's also do one more thing here. Let's go to the attributes and let's enforce a minimum of 100 here. I'm not going to give it a default. I'm just going to give it a minimum. Okay. All right. All right. So, like I said, going back to the use case, we are going to ask customers default this cage deployment um, to no. If they opt in, then we want the cage square footage to be at least 100. We're going to have a minimum at all times of 4 cabinets that the customer needs to buy, so they can only buy they can buy 4 or more. They can't buy 3 or less. They can choose if they want those fixtures to be racks or cabinets. We want to ask them how many kilowatts per month do they expect to use. We're going to default to 100 and give a minimum of 100, I believe. Yes, see? So we keep that correct. We also want to ask the customer if they want a coverage overage option. So if they go over whatever they expect to pay per month, will they be willing to pay for every kilowatt overage for overage fee or something like that? That's default to yes. They can opt out if they want. We ask if they want some add-ons like upgraded cooling, compliance certification. You should maybe see some correlations between the selections a user could make and also the structure we looked at earlier. And we're going to ask them what kind of connectivity, internet connectivity they want. Okay. And this isn't doing anything. I can make selections. You see no price being added. If I expand this panel, you don't see any BOM being added. It's because we haven't done that work yet. But this is really step 2 that you need to do. Okay. So now that you have your parts created, your config attributes created, and your flow created, now we can start filling in the BOM table. And this stuff, the creation of the parts, the creation of config attributes, the creation of the product structure can really happen in parallel. You don't really need to do one after the other. If it's just you, it's probably a good idea. But if you're working in a team, you can divide and conquer on this. Okay. So let's just deploy here. And I actually want to make one more change because I want this to auto hide. I have to click the update. So we can do that together. I'm going to Ajax enable this, refresh and deploy. And now we need to start with our BOM tables. So let's close all of this, kind of clean up our screens, come back to the admin screen. Now, I already have BOM tables in my site. Come to data tables, BOM mapping. And you see I already have these tables. These are really the only 3 tables you'll need. There's 2 more, I believe. These are really the only ones you need, frankly. So we're just going to use these 3. For each site, there's only going to be 1 set of BOM tables. So you may have to make sure everything fits into the one table. All right. So I already have stuff in this table, these tables. I could just download them and or likely will download them and just use them. But if you don't have any BOM tables in your site, you need to know where to find the templates. So we're going to come back to our admin screen. We're going to come to BOM under products. We're going to go to BOM tables, and you need to activate the ones you want to use. Again, I'm just using 3 out of the 5. Once you activate and save, they will, like I do here, it'll be something you can click on. Once you click into it, you can download the sample. Here's what the sample will look like. Very simple. Okay. We're not going to use the sample because I already have these tables in my site. So I'm going to download the ones we have, and I'm just going to remove all the records and start from scratch. Okay. So let's do that now. Okay. So we have our BOM tables downloaded. Again, there's only 3. And the first table that we want to start with is going to be the BOM item definition. This table is where we define the item definition or the BOM definition, or in other words, the structure of the BOM. So if we look at some things we have here already, we have a bunch of parts, but more interesting is that we have the root variable name and the parent. And you can see that this line or this part is a child of this root variable name, which is all the way over to the left. So you can see this. This is this parent variable name and root variable name. This is what's going to be how you define the parent-child relationship structure in your table, and it's based on the variable name, which is all the way over here. Okay. So my intention is not to explain what's here already. I want to do it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove everything, and we're going to start from scratch. Okay. So let's actually go back to Dynalist because this is where our structure is. And we can actually, I think we should be able to copy and paste this over. And we're going to put everything in the part number field. And actually, to make this easy for us, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this row here. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to get rid of it later. And we're going to freeze it. That way it stays persistent with us. Okay, so like I said, we're going to copy all of this. I think we should be able to copy everything. We're just going to put everything in the part number field. Okay, so it doesn't let us. So let's just do it one by one. Okay, so we have all of our part numbers in here. I will give these part numbers the same name. If you're using some more generic part numbers, you can put the part number here, obviously, but have name for the description so you know what you're telling. Item type is, again, can put whatever you want here. It's not super important, but we are going to be consistent with what we have in that user item type, if you remember in the parts. So it's going to be a model. It's going to be an option class. Space, power, connectivity, add-ons. These are going to be finished goods. All right. Everything will have a default quantity of 1. So let's move a little bit to the left here so we don't go too far. We're going to come to the update action later. For variable name can be, again, whatever you want it to be. If you're using a product lifecycle manager or product data hub or some sort of product MDM application, which will likely be the variable name of the product record itself. For our purposes, we're just going to use the part number because everything is unique. The variable name needs to be unique. Sequence number and item ID. Again, item ID is if you're using um, a proper product management system, you can have that item ID here. This BOM level or sequence number, this could be just 1, 2, 3, right? We are actually going to make the sequence number our BOM level because this is something we talked about before. The sequence number doesn't need to be unique. It has some implications on how the structure looks in a line item grid, um, essentially showing the order, the sequence of the structure. But for us, we're just going to make it the BOM level to keep it easy. Okay. And for item ID, I'm just going to give it, something like that, just so everything is unique. Doesn't need to be special. 0, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay. All right. Like I said, everything's going to have a default quantity. Everything is going to be optional. Nothing is going to be required. Actually, yes, we're going to keep everything optional. Now, you may be wondering, what does optional mean? Of course, it means you can have it or not. It's not required. But let's look at the hub documentation just to be sure. The schemas are here. So this is important to know. Only optional parts can be deleted from the transaction. Okay. When an optional part is deleted, all child items of the part also deleted. This includes models that are defined as child models of other parts. So in other words, if I delete space, any of these children are going to be gone. Not that I would ever do that, but if you did. So we may come back and change this, but let's keep everything optional for now. Everything will be a sales item. Yes, sales item meaning that we want to see it on the line item grid. It's a sales BOM. We're creating it all. Here we come to our parent and root variable name. So actually, let's do ourselves a favor and hide some columns just for a second. Okay. Now, everything is going to have the root variable name of the root. Of course, everything is in this root. Now, but not everything will have the parent variable name of the root. Only these things will have the parent variable name of the root. These four things. These three, cage, cabinet, and rack, their parent is going to be space. Kilowatts parent is going to be power. These internet options, their parent is going to be connectivity. And see, if you see the mistake I made here, which is quite common, you should be very careful. Deployment add-on, its parent is not connectivity. Deployment add-on, its parent is not connectivity. Deployment add-on, its parent is deployment. So let's fix this. I'm happy I made that because you should see something like that. Now, for these three options, their parent, rightfully so, is deployment add-ons. So I think this is the root of it all here. So make sure you get this right. And we're referring to the variable names here. I know I'm using the part numbers, but we're referring to the variable names here. Okay, let's keep moving to the right. We're not going to use effective from or to date. We're not going to use any manufacturing items in this use case, but just so you know, you can add manufacturing items to the BOM mapping tables, which essentially allow you to put a layer, an invisible layer underneath the sales BOM. But we're not going to get into that today. We're not going to worry about the included in base path, included in base price. We will talk about model path, but we won't talk about BOM price. These things are kind of obsolete now. The model path. So coming back to the help documentation, you could read what's here, and this also refers to some of what we were talking about before, which has to do with the if you want your root model to be a part or just an idea of something. Long story short, let's unhide these. If my root model was a part, I would give the part number here. But let's just say it's not a part, it's just an idea of something. I can give the model path here. The model path. The path to the model in your BOM hierarchy. So again, just to show, the path to the model in the BOM hierarchy. All products, product family, product lines, models. That's the path. Family, line, model. Family, line, model. Variable name. So, and just to come back up here to part, again, this can either contain the part number of the BOM item or the model path. So if you have an item, a part here that's sellable, you would have the part here. So you have to put a price against it. And then you have the model path all the way over to the right. We're not going to have our deployment to be, it's just, we're going to consider our deployment a physical thing. So we're going to put our variable names here, the model path. So let's do that together. We need to get the variable name of the product family, which is here. We need to get the variable name of the product line, which is here. And we need to get the variable name of the model, which is here. All right. So we are done. Our action code is going to be add because these are going to be new records in our BOM table. Let's unfreeze the top row. We're going to delete this because we do not need it. We just have that there for convenience purposes. We're going to save this. And we're going to move it over to the left here because our next item, our next table that we're going to work with will be the BOM item map table. All right. This table is where you map your configuration attribute and their values to items in the BOM. So again, let's delete everything here. I'm going to move this column down just for convenience. And what we are going to do is we are just going to copy the variable name from the BOM item definition table, and we need to put it in column C, BOM item variable name, BOM item variable name here. But we're going to keep the same variable names also in the BOM item map table. So we don't need, you can have different variable names, but you don't need to. Now, this is where the fun happens. First things first is let's fill out this parent BOM map variable name. I am actually forgetting what this is, but let's come over to the help documentation and see. This is what we're looking at. Variable name of the bottom. Okay. So this is going to be essentially the path to the BOM item mapping rule. We haven't talked about BOM item mapping rules yet, but let's just copy this, add it here, and take what we know. So we have seen a path like this before. Product family variable name, product line variable name, product model variable name. So let's go fetch that from this table because we've already defined the first part of it, right? But this last part we don't know, the config rule variable name. This variable name is going to come from a BOM mapping rule. So let's just come into list of models here. So I'm looking at my list of models. If I expand the navigation, I can come down to BOM mapping. Okay, so let's select this. I don't have a BOM mapping rule. Now is a good time to create that BOM mapping rule, or at least come up with a name for it, because we won't be able to save it because this data isn't in CPQ yet. So let's just call it deployment BOM mapping rule tab. Now, because I already have BOM mapping tables in my site, I could select something here. But if you're doing this for the first time, you won't be able to select anything here, and thus won't be able to save this rule. So it's Good to at least get the variable name in so you can finish filling this out like so. But keep this in mind because you will need to have this root created with the exact variable name after you upload these tables. All right. So we won't worry about this rule right now. Let's just leave it where it is and come back to our BOM map, our data tables. This will need to be for every row here. All right. And let's just, for now, hide these. Okay. So now, and again, these can all be add. So now we have the variable names in. We need to do our config mapping. And how this works is, I think, pretty simple, but I'm a little biased, is for the items, the parts that we want to return based on configuration attribute values, we need to give the configuration attribute variable name and a config attribute value. So let's go to CPQ. Let's look at our configuration attributes here. Let's also open it up from the user side so we can have a visual. All right. So let's start from the bottom up, a little bit easier. So for these deployment add-ons, these here. Also, I should mention that you need to have the whole structure in here. You can't just have the things that you want to map to configuration attributes. Have the whole structure in here. For deployment add-ons, we know that the config attribute variable name is deployment add-on, like I have here. And then the variable name for the value that we want for cooling add-on is going to be cooling add-on. Environmental monitoring, oops, it's going to be the same. Compliance certification assistant is going to be the same. So there's that. Let's go back. For internet, it's a little bit more tricky because there's two attributes you want to consider: internet medium and internet connection speed. So how do we do that? Internet medium, internet connection speed. Well, the BOM item map table gives you up to 10 configurable attributes that you can string together to return one part. So just to use an example of two, like we're doing now, we know that for all of these, internet medium will be one config attribute and internet connection speed will be another. Now, for half of them, we know that the config attribute value will be fiber, these three. And for the other three, will be cable. And again, for the first three, or at least the 250, we know that the internet speed variable name will be here, 250, 500, 1000, and we can just copy these down. So now, again, I've also made another mistake here. For deployment add-ons, I've given it configuration attributes and variables. We don't need that, so I'm going to delete it. That's all we need here. Zoom it out so you can see it in totality. All right. Moving on to kilowatts. We actually aren't going to put anything in kilowatts here. That's going to be in the next table because kilowatts is just an integer, and we don't handle just integers here. This integer is going to equate to the quantity on the line item grid. So we deal with that in the next table. So we're not going to do anything for kilowatts, not do anything for power. We will do something for cage and rack. We're going to take the fixture attribute. Notice this is an array attribute as well. Okay. So what we expect to see is a line on the line item grid per index in the array. It's a good thing to know because there are things that you may sell in a quantity, but you actually want it as a separate line if you need to add and remove that specific thing later. Because again, I could just say I'm selling 4 cabinets, but in reality, I need to know which cabinet I may be adding to the floor. Because if I need to come back later and remove it, I need to know which specific cabinet. So it needs to be in an array. Okay, you can do things like that for software licenses. If each software license needs to be distinct, um, you can do it for a lot of things. But for cabinets, this is what we're doing. So let's find that configuration attribute. It's just fixture. And then for cabinet and rack, and then for cabinet, it's just going to be cabinet. And for rack, it's just going to be rack. Now for cage, again, cage is going to be an integer, but we only want to consider it when this flag is true. So let's get this configuration attribute, cage deployment. We're going to put it next to cage, and it needs to be true, lowercase, lowercase. Needs to be lowercase. Now you see that I'm happy this showed up. You see that this is now in all caps true. That's not going to work. Now you could upload this to the BOM mapping tables and replace everything in the UI, but it's much easier to do it before we even get that far. So what you're going to do is put a tick. This is like an apostrophe, I believe. This sign here, true, enter, and now it takes as lowercase true. So that's a good uh, trick to know. All right, so let's clean up our table. Yeah, we don't need this. Let's save. We have everything we need here. Let's unhide everything. Make sure everything is here. Which it is. And now we're good on this table. So let's save this and go to the next table. All right, so the next table that we will be working with is the BOM attribute mapping table. Here it is. Let's just move this table to the left, move the one we're working with to the right. This table is where we're going to, it does a lot of cool things. Let's just look at what we have here. You can map attribute values to quantities. So the quantity on the line item grid, you can create BOM attributes, which is just a JSON object that holds the values for your bill of materials. That's important to have. You can have display type, which if you're using system configuration, you can change the display for um, option class names or model names. You can map config attributes to line attributes, uh, but we won't really do a lot of that today. Let's again remove everything because we only need what we need. We'll delete these. Okay. We will add or copy this row down so it'll be easier to work with. There we go. And we are going to need the variable names of everything, but not everything. We only need the variable names of the things we're going to work with. So in that case, it's just going to be the kilowatts. I want to put that second. And it's going to be the cage. So let's just call it cage QTY and kilowatts QTY. Now there's another table that I always go back to the documentation for. So let's go together. Attribute mapping table, schema. We're looking at a target type. Again, map to BOM item attribute, BOM attribute. I should just read this. The mapping target type can only have values BOM attribute, line attribute, quantity. BOM attribute map to a BOM item attribute, line attribute map to a commerce quote line level attribute. Okay, and quantity, the BOM line item quantity. This is just going to map to the quantity attribute, at least the out of the box, the one you're supposed to be using attribute. So in this case, our target type is going to be quantity. Target variable name. We won't need that here because we're not targeting a specific attribute. By virtue of having the target type being quantity, the system already knows what that attribute is going to be. Okay. Source type. It's going to be a config attribute, of course. Config attribute name. This is going to be the one for cage. And here's the one for quantity. So we're going to give it the variable name. Again, we don't need a static entry because it's not static. Cage, yes. And kilowatt, yes. We won't need config attribute value. We will need the, I want to hide some of these so we can be more clean while working with this. BOM item map variable name. That is going to be these here. BOM item map variable name. Cage. Kilowatts. Root BOM map variable name. I believe it's going to be deployment, but let me make sure. So of course we come back to our help documentation, trusty help documentation. And it looks to be this sort of thing again, where we have that rule. So we know where to get that from. It's going to be the same thing. I'm going to go here, there. And that is it. So hopefully we did everything right. Of course, we need to add these. Save them. And let's look at these tables again one by one. Again, first, We have our item definition, BOM item definition table. This holds the structure, the exploited structure. Okay. Has our variable name, our sequence number, which we're using as a BOM level, our item ID, the name, which will be the description of your part, an item type, again, not optional, but it's good to fill this out intelligently, your part numbers for the model. If it's not a part number that is going to be a physical good or at least have a price attached to it, you can just give the model path. So that's what we've done. Default quantity, if something is optional, sales item, everything should be yes. Yes, in this case. The parent and root variable names, everything is the root of the deployment. And we have our parent relationship. So space, um, all these items are children of space, et cetera, et cetera. We're not doing any manufacturing items, but if we were, the manufacturing items would be yes, and correspondent, or everything would be yes. But for the items that were only manufacturing items, their sales item would be no, so we wouldn't see them on the line item grid. Included in base price and BOM price are pretty much obsolete nowadays, so we don't fill those in. And model path, if we again had a model that was an actual part, we would have the model path here and the part number in the part number path. So let's save and close this. Next, we have the BOM item map table. This is a table that maps our configuration attribute values to items from the item definition from the BOM structure. So we see here, we have an example of some arrays where if a fixture value is cabinet, we're going to get a cabinet item. If it's rack, we'll get a rack item. We have an example of items that have more than one configuration attribute that matters. So for internet, it considers the fiber and the speed. So we have an internet medium, fiber, or cable. Then the speeds being 250, 500, or 1,000. And we repeat and that's just two groups of that, one group being fiber, one group being cable. And we have some multi-select where the attribute value is here, config attribute value is here, config attribute variable name is here, and then the value name is here. And then we also have a Boolean. Note that the Boolean, is lowercase. So let's save this and close it. And then last but not least, we have the BOM attribute map table. We're just using this to do quantities, but you can also map config attributes to line attributes. You can map config attributes to BOM attributes, which is just a JSON object that you see in Commerce. And you can also do a display name if you want to have your submodels or your child models or your option classes have specific names based on configuration attributes. But quantity is the most used thing. So we're also going to save this and close it. So now that we have these tables created, let's go back to CPQ and begin to upload them. There's no real order that you need to do this in, but I'll do it in order that we work with. So item definition table first. Okay, it looks like it didn't work for me, which is fine. Let's look at the logs. Okay, so it looks like we have to have modify or delete. So that's fine. Let's just update our tables. Modify, if you don't know, will either create a record if that record is not found, or if it is found, it will modify it. And that record being the key record. So this is our item definition table. Let's do our item map table. We want to make sure this is lowercase true, so we will correct this now. Okay, easy fix. Let's try again. And this time, let's go from top to bottom. I should also mention that because these tables already exist, I don't need to fill out anything down here. I don't need to tell it, oops, I don't need to tell the system the column delimiter, the row delimiter, the data with delimiter. I don't need to tell it it's a Microsoft Excel CSV, and I don't need to tell it the destination folder. If you're doing this for the first time, you will at least need to select the Microsoft Excel.csv format and then the proper folder you want. But if, again, these tables already exist in your system, you can just import them and not have to worry about it. Okay, so now that that is done, let's go back because we should look at this. This is an important detail. Let's go back to help and look at these tables again because, again, because I already have this done, I don't need to do this, but you need to come for each of the tables that you upload, look at the schema because you need to look at the help documentation and schema because you'll need to properly index and key your columns. Okay, so come back here and look how you should index them and key them. That's important. Now, I, again, have already done this before, so I don't need to do that. My columns are already selected. Let's go to the last page. We can see everything is uploaded. Yep, here's our stuff down here. And let's just select all of these and deploy them. Okay, everything is deployed. So after these are deployed, if you're doing this for the first time, you'll need to come back to admin, come to BOM, the BOM tables, and then for each table, you'll need to select the table name here. You should have automatic column mapping, but if it's good to review these to make sure everything is mapped properly. What this is doing is mapping your data table tables to your to the platform tables, and that's important to do. That brings all the data internally. Mhm. And then you can come to BOM root item list, and you should be able to see your BOM here. And if you click on it, if there's any errors with regard to parts not being created, you'll see that here. But this gives you a nice indented structure. Okay. So next thing we need to do is then create that BOM mapping rule. So we will go to catalog definition. We want to go to the model that we're working with. And again, we could do this at the product line level, but actually, no, we couldn't. We have to do it at the model level. Sorry. Come to the model that we're working with, BOM mapping, add. And we want to make sure that that variable name matches what we had in our tables. And I remember it was BOM, deployment BOM mapping rule. It's going to be always true. If you want, you can add a condition on it. We will select our target BOM, which is now here. Wonderful. And we will select our commerce process. So we're just going to do it for this commerce process here. We can save and view. And if there were any errors with regard to any of the other tables besides the item definition table, so obviously your BOM mapping table, your BOM attribute mapping table, you would see them here. Okay, so it's good to check. So let's cancel this. Let's apply. And then let's come back and we're going to deploy this and then see, go into a configuration experience and see if it all works. Okay, so everything's deployed, nothing left to do. Let's come into a configuration experience and see if everything works. Okay, so something is not working. Oh, nope, it is. It is, it is, it is. So it's down here. So I want to make a change to our configuration flow because I like to see it on the left. So let's just do that together. Going to come back to admin, catalog definition. I'm going to drill down to my model. I want to look at my configuration flow. And layout properties. I like my jet item list display on the right, which is that right sidebar that we saw coming out. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else I want to change right now. So let's just save and deploy. So that was quick. Let's come back, leave and come back in to our configuration experience. And here we go. We have all our prices and things like that. Let's even properly do a transaction so we can see this stuff on the line item grid. And here we go. Now you see this is kind of out of order, not the real order I wanted. So let's see if we can't do something about that. Let's first take a look at the BOM. And maybe I'm moving too fast. The order I mean is I like to have it deployment space power connectivity, like how we had in our Dyna list, if you remember. So let's see if we can't do something about that. First step I'm going to go to is look at uh, the BOM root item administration list. We see we have it here, which is good. But the group sequence isn't working. So I have a theory of what it might be. Let's come to I wonder if anyone can guess. Let's play a game. If you can guess, just add it to the comments and then timestamp it so I know you didn't skip ahead. Let's come to our data tables. BOM mapping, item definition. We're going to do a filter where the root contains deploy PL met. And I think it's this sequence number. So what we're going to do is just give it straight down. Whoops. 0, 1, 11, 12. Okay, so let's see if that had any effect. We just gave our sequence number of cascading. We said earlier, or I said earlier, that we're going to just use the bomb level, but maybe that wasn't such the best idea. Okay, and that did it. So here we go. So that sequence number, I guess you do want in ascending order or descending, whatever, lowest to highest to get the proper order you want. So, and let's go back and reconfigure so we can see, talk more about this. So again, you can see that, let's add more rows here. Add a cage, let's say it's 200. Oh, we can turn that off. If you don't know how to turn it off, let's do it together. And what I'm talking about turning it off is this kind of warning, this recommendation. We don't really need it. In fact, we don't want it. So we're going to come to our config flow. Desktop. This is the attribute here. I'm going to go to settings and turn off the show recommendation message. You don't want to show anything. We're going to deploy that. So let's just keep it 200. Let's say half of these are racks. And the other half are going to be cabinets. Let's choose one of these. Let's give it a cable 5 or cable 1000. Let's also double the power. Let's turn this off. Update to be safe. Save. And here we go. Again, now we have 8 records corresponding to the 8 indexes in the array. Right? We have our quantity for kilowatts of power. Oh, but you know what's not here is our cage. So let's actually go back and see if there's anything wrong with that. And it is, which we can guess why that's happening. But let's go to our BOM table. We're going to go to our item mapping table this time. Probably on this page, second from last. Yep, I spelled true wrong. So we're going to deploy that. And you'll notice that we don't need to redeploy config once the table itself is redeployed. So we don't need to wait for that. And you'll see that if right now we don't have any cage here, but if I update, here's our cage with a quantity of 200. All right, our power is also a quantity of 200. Let's save this. Okay, our cage is here. Now I actually want my cage to be at the top above the rack and cabinet. So let's see if we can't change that. So it already is. And maybe this has something to do with the order in which we added them. But that's fine. I won't complain about it. If I really wanted to get fancy, if the cage were enabled, I can have these cabinet and rack, these fixtures to be children of the cage, but no need to do that right now. But yeah, we have everything here that we want. Our BOM mapping is working flawlessly. We covered mapping multiple config attributes to one part. We covered booleans. We covered integers and how to map quantity, integer attributes, config attributes to quantity in a line item grid. And if you want to know what is that specific quantity, it is price quantity. This is the out of the box one you should be using. So we covered that. We covered mapping array attribute types to config items. And that's how we got multiple of these here. And then we also said single select, and single select works the same as multi select as well. So hope that is helpful. That's really everything we can do. Now we could get into advanced BOM mapping rules and or sys configuration, and we'll get to those in subsequent videos. But this is really the core and foundation. Knowing how to work with these BOM mapping tables is the biggest hurdle in BOM mapping. So I think this should be enough information to make you all dangerous. I did my best to make the video succinct, but it's hard to do. This is such a big topic. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Can't promise I'll be able to answer everything, but I'll do my best. I check them regularly. And also thank you all for support. As of making this video now, I think we have about 150, 170 subscribers to the channel. So thank you very much. I know the CPQ world is small, but hope to expand this and talk about other enterprise selling applications or peripheral applications. Salesforce, order management, product data hub, subscription management, other CPQs, other subscription management. So your support means a lot to me. I really, really appreciate it. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and thank you very much. Have a good one. Talk to you later.